Welcome to Thriller Premium. Welcome to Thriller Premium. In-depth coverage and timely analysis of macro and micro happenings in crypto and Bitcoin.
Welcome to Thriller Insider.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of Thriller Insider. Today is June 28th, 2020, and today we are talking the importance of Bitcoin. You're probably wondering, hey Car, why are you talking about that today? Well, there's a lot of reason to that. I think we're starting to see an awakening in the crypto and Bitcoin space here, and I think maximalists, Bitcoin maximalists, that is, they're starting to realize that, Ethereum might be a thing. I think a lot of them were caught off surprise by DeFi. Now, a lot of them were hoping it was going to die and it was going to be a fiery death, just like ICOs. You saw a lot of that banter, but I think it took a lot of them by surprise. I don't think they were expecting to see Ethereum get another second hit single, meaning ICO, right, in 2017, 2016, and now DeFi here in 2020 and hopefully 2021. So I want to bring up the importance of Bitcoin because I think the importance of Bitcoin gets lost in that back and forth conversation. And for the most part, Ethereum community doesn't necessarily feel like Bitcoin adds any value to them or the ecosystem. And I know it's really hard for and to be honest, like it's really, I've noticed, and this is just being at Ethereum conferences and being around Ethereum people, they find Bitcoin to be really boring. And I totally get that. I can see that, right? But I think the vast majority of people are missing the point when it comes to Bitcoin. So I want to kind of go through what I call is a little kind of, an article that I put together and I posted it on thrillerx.com. It's called The Importance of Bitcoin. And I wanted to make it a Thriller Insider too, because I feel like this is a very kind of unprecedented time that we're living in, right? This is like a once in 100-year kind of event, right? Especially with the pandemic, and then now with how these central banks and the Fed just keep printing more money, and the whole disparaging gap between the ultra wealthy and how they're just killing the middle class, right? We've covered that in the past. We're not going to go down that today, but we're very much in a transitional period in time where not only is that happening, but people are starting to work remote, myself included, right? We have day jobs, but now we're at home working, but we're making it work, right? And we're starting to see everything become more online featured, right? Everything's moving more online. And it's probably, I feel like it's happening at a faster rate here in the past 3-4 months since this is all have been going on. And then we're also seeing something else. We're seeing all sorts of digital form of content, or just more and more value is being created online. Like on Ethereum, for example, you're seeing like actual like 3D paintings and crypto kitties and all these kind of digital forms of value, right? So the main issue that we have during this transition is the friction that's being caused by these on-ramps and off-ramps with our current legacy financial system. Because we know how old that is. That's like 1970s technology, right? So how do we pay for, I guess the question I want to bring to y'all is, how do we pay for this digital value? I think if we look a little bit further, we can see that all forms of digital value stay online, right? And they only ever live and breathe online, right? Like I can't take like a crypto YouTube video with me, right? I mean, I could take it on my phone, but I can't actually take like a video cassette of it. I'm sure I could create one, but that doesn't have the same value as it would online, right? Because you can attach ads to it and all the sort and make some kind of profit from it. But without ever exiting the internet, does that crypto YouTube video have value? Do CryptoKitties have value? Some people think they don't. I tend to think they do. And I'm wondering, like, here in the future, when Apple and Google create their AR or VR component, are we going to be able to see our CryptoKitties, in the palm of our hand? Like, is that going to be a thing? And if you don't know what AR is, it's coming around the corner, like almost like literally a year, 2 years from now. Take a listen real quick.
Augmented reality is a technology whose goal it is to augment or enhance one's physical environment by adding digital elements. This new industry has started maturing, and Apple stepping in with a pair of augmented reality glasses may be a game changer. The details of these glasses were recently leaked. So what can Apple bring to the space?
So they certainly will bring some sort of, new way of seeing these digital forms of value that we kind of cherish online, right? And that could be something as simple as a photo or a CryptoKitty, right? And so it leads me to wonder, with the increasing adoption of what we hope to be AR and VR in the future, and I'm talking like here in the next 18 to 24 months, can we go to a retail store one day, and purchase a CryptoKitty like sitting on a shelf? Like, let's say you go to a Best Buy and there's your video game section. Like, is there going to be like a CryptoKitty section, but it requires glasses, right? And then you're just buying it off the shelf and you're paying. Like, is that going to be a thing? And that might be a topic for a different day, honestly. But still, how do we determine a digital form of value? I think that's the ultimate question that I'm trying to get to. So if we look at something like Twitter, for example, right? We know the stock of Twitter has value because the New York Stock Exchange tells us, right? I think it's like trading for like $26 a share. And also it brings quarterly returns to its shareholders, right? Do the people that actually maintain Twitter, like the software developers, the support staff, the people who run it, the community that lives there. There's so many different parts of that community that stay on Twitter, that talk on Twitter, that debate on Twitter. The information that lives there, is that what makes it valuable? Or could you say that just the people running it and the people that maintain it and the information that's on it and the community that lives there, if they were to pick up and leave Twitter and start something called Fitter, does Twitter lose value? So it gets you wondering, like, where does this, what makes Twitter valuable? And so you start getting into this kind of place where you're trying to go back and forth and understanding how value works on the internet and online, and how we're very much transitioning. I think few people realize how much the transition has occurred here in the past 4 months, but it's slowly changing, and I probably see it at a faster pace, just being in the technology space here in Austin. So I definitely feel like I'm probably right in front, as opposed to somebody like my wife who works for the city and probably doesn't see those everyday changes. Does that necessarily mean that the value is going to be changing in the future? I think it is. And when people look at Bitcoin, and this is where I want to get back to Bitcoin, because that was the original statement, the importance of Bitcoin. Right now, currently, people look and value Bitcoin because they look at it like gold. Like, it's this Bitcoin scarcity is very contributed to the fact that people look at it like digital gold, right? From a marketing perspective, that works extremely well for us. Like, I don't think we would have gotten so many baby boomers onboarded if it wasn't for people understanding that Bitcoin is digital gold. It's the truth. Now, if this is true, then it's easy to say that Bitcoin is the reinvention of gold native to the internet, right? I mean, the internet has been around since the 1980s. So if you take that as being the case, that sounds well important enough for Bitcoin. As more and more digital forms of value start to appreciate and increasingly become scarce online, How will the internet determine this value? And this is where you're seeing lots of people really struggle with this notion. Some people think it's going to be cash, and some people think it's going to be more fiat currencies that are going to rule the world. Do they rule the world? But do they rule the world in this real world and not in this online world? Do you get what I'm saying? Or is it Ethereum? Because Ethereum has well over 75% of all digital assets of value online, right? I mean, we know there's going to be other smart contracting platforms. Cardano is well on its way to releasing their mainnet, right? To be honest with you, there will be more and more real world assets in the near future as well. Like securities eventually will move on there. We're talking like court documents. Like there's going to be so many use cases for Ethereum or for any smart contracting platform. And to be honest with you, I don't think people realize how much of a technological tool Ethereum really is. I think if there's somebody that really expresses this really well, it's probably Andreas. And I think when it comes to looking at Ethereum, people don't realize that it's just a tool. Like that's all it really is. It's just a tool of its time, right? Just like the paper and pencil was in the 1800s or the personal computer in the 1900s. So once you kind of get that kind of framework and you get that thinking, then you understand how you can make that switch from Ethereum to Bitcoin and the importance of Bitcoin. Now, the main issue with everybody in this space right now is the infighting with Bitcoin and Ethereum. And it's almost like they're really trying to one up each other. It's really pointless. Because when you look at everything else, like money, just truly sound money is just a foundational layer for everything else. This has been true for so long, and I'm left wondering now, is this still true? I think it is. I think the vast majority of us look at money as being just a foundational layer for everything else. Now, I want you to take a listen to this debate because it starts off as one thing and then it turns into something completely else by the end of it. And you're going to be left wondering, like, wait, why is the back and forth with Ethereum and Bitcoin? Why are they both trying to be the foundational layer for everything else? Take a listen.
So Andreas, I wanted to turn it back because you mentioned this twice now, and I just want to clarify it. You said that Bitcoin and proof of work is great for what Bitcoin is being intended for or being designed for, and then Ethereum or proof of stake and Ethereum is kind of being designed in a different way for different use cases. Can you be a little bit more explicit about what use cases you have in mind, just so we can carry that through the conversation?
So I think primarily Bitcoin, its primary use case is very decentralized, censorship-resistant, neutral, borderless money that cannot be taken down by even colluding states at a very large level without enormous effort and without some pockets of it remaining even under pressure. It is either a very sound reserve currency for the internet if it's not being attacked, or it's the guerrilla currency that is resisting the attack if it is being attacked, and it's the only surviving guerrilla currency that survives in tiny pockets when it's being massively attacked. I think it can do that. And by comparison, I think Ethereum is this really, really nice sandbox playpen for developers to explore their wildest imaginations and build really complex and expressive and interesting systems, build modular systems by reusing components, explore new innovations in finance and financial services, in governance systems, in content systems, and do so at a very, very rapid pace. And so those two functions are fundamentally different. And they require different money, they require a different security mechanism.
Yeah, that's actually a great lead into the next topic that I kind of wanted to bring up. So the year 2018 and 2019 were pretty pivotal in the Ethereum narrative for how Ether is going to accrue in value and how it's going to protect the system, because Ether price appreciation is directly correlated to the security and health of the overall network. And so the price appreciation, at least the narrative in the Ethereum world, is that Ether becomes the collateral for all of these DeFi applications. And that DeFi is this blanketed network financial layer upon the globe that is hopefully moving ever closer to being unstoppable code, unstoppable applications that use Ether as a collateral type. And so at the beginning of this podcast, you talked about how you are Bitcoin and Ethereum, but there is a growing subset of people, call them monetary maximalists, that really think that only one money can really exist, and that money is going to be the most liquid, the most saleable, the most globally accessible asset. And so some people think that it can't be Bitcoin and Ethereum. It has to be either BTC or ETH. And so do you take that point, and then also do you see that DeFi is as a layer, a financial layer for the earth, and where's Bitcoin's role in that?
I don't agree with that perspective, and I don't think the historical data we have on money and currencies in general shows that. Money does have to have some soundness and some characteristics on forgeability, and money can be better money or less good money, but utility is a big part of it, and some money can be very good money because it has very good utility, and other money can be very good money because it has very good soundness. And both can be good money in different contexts. And if it is trivially easy to do an atomic swap between them in a decentralized, uncensorable, and neutral way, then all of the types of pressures that would lead to a single dominant money get eroded by that trade-off between soundness and utility, which actually is a good reason to have two. So I don't buy that. Just for emotional, tribal affiliation and brand reasons, people have more than one money. For non-rational, financially stupid reasons, people have more than one money. But even for strictly rational reasons, I think there's more room in the world for some different types of money that are easily interchangeable. And, it may be that Bitcoin and Ethereum are those or not. I don't know yet. The idea of Ethereum being collateral for all of the DeFi applications, et cetera, is the same fundamental idea that I see for Bitcoin, and just with different applications, which is this. When somebody asks me how secure is Bitcoin or how secure is Ethereum, there is no unit for measuring security. I wish there was. I wish I could say it's 2 gigaschneiers or, 1 kilo Assange or 7 petasnodens, to use some names of people who have affected the security of our lives. The best analogy I can use is to measure the amount of capital that is currently stored and has not yet been stolen in that system. So I can say that Bitcoin is, $80 billion secure now. That means that it can store, use, and transmit those kinds of amounts in an economy of that size without being compromised. How do I know? Because it has. Not for very long, but long enough that I can say it wasn't a fluke. And similarly, I can say the same thing for Ethereum to a certain size. So if you think of security being measured as the amount of money that the system has the capacity to keep secure and not have stolen outright, not just stolen from in the system, but stolen out of the system, taken out of the system, collapsed, crashed, whatever, then that's a proxy to this idea of collateralization. So if you say, you know, Ethereum is X many billion dollars secure, that means that you can use it to run an economy of this size before it's hacked, that it can keep an economy of that size unhacked. And so as the ability of the system to secure more economic activity and more applications that create that economic activity increases, so should the price of the token in order to maintain that security, whether you're in proof of work or proof of stake. And so I buy that. And I see it in both Bitcoin and Ethereum. In the case of Bitcoin, the application for me is an international framework for cross-border transmission of uncensorable neutral money and on-ramps into all of the other cryptocurrencies, the gateway to fiat and things like that. In the case of Ethereum, it's with Ether, it's things like DeFi and ICOs and crowdfunding. And who knows what next? I mean, I don't think those are the only applications.
So there's a pretty common criticism from generally the Ethereum crowd to the Bitcoin crowd that Bitcoin is good money but a bad monetary system. And so some people, I tend to believe this, think that Bitcoin is kind of incomplete because in order for Bitcoin to be integrated into a financial system, we have to trust people in order to do that. Because of the lack of expressibility of Bitcoin at the base layer, we need to trust, financial institutions in the same way that we trust the banks now. And so the thesis here is that Bitcoin is kind of just this new boss, same as the old boss. And anyone who just didn't have early exposure to Bitcoin price appreciation is really never going to be able to appreciate the benefits of this new financial system. It's just going to take dollars in your dollar banks, and then you're going to have Bitcoin in your Bitcoin crypto banks. Do you accept that thesis, or do you decline it?
I would decline it, and I would decline it for a number of reasons. One, it underestimates the expressivity of Bitcoin script, meaning that you can actually do some rather interesting smart contracts, the Lightning Network being a great example of that. The second is that in terms of expressivity, if that thesis is correct and you really need a form of money that's much more expressive, then the only real function that Bitcoin needs to do, in addition to being robust and uncensorable, is to be able to do an atomic swap into Ether. And then you get all of the goodies of Ether plus the ability to maintain robust, uncensorable, cross-border, neutral transactions. Which on its own, I don't think Ether can do.
So gold has been a historic store of value primarily because of its scarcity, right? And as we see everything move towards online, it's obvious that we're going to need a gold for the internet. And that's Bitcoin. And when you hear Andreas talk to these Ethereum maximalists, because that's what they are, they fail to understand that. I've noticed that they fail to understand sound money. And I was one of the very first, I would say, podcasters that started where we really played a lot of Andreas clips. I think the first season, it was just all Andreas speakings for the most part for our podcast episodes, because we just didn't. There just wasn't a better person to explain it. And so during that time, I felt like myself and y'all included we really understood what sound money was from just a first principles perspective, right? And so Bitcoin to us gives us that sound money for the internet. So it's easy for us to understand the kind of historical context to that. But not only that, if you just look at the store value for the internet, it's obviously going to be Bitcoin, right? It's a reinvention of gold. And I think when we go back to the original question of how do we determine a digital form of value, well, it's going to have to be determined from the digital gold of the internet, and that's Bitcoin. So if that's the case, why wouldn't you understand that Bitcoin is sound money? It throws me for a loop. And it probably, there's a saying that says that mathematics is the language of the gods, right? I don't know if you guys ever heard that. Like, that's always dropped in movies and like a Michael Bay like movies, I would think. It's just like, it's always like, oh yeah, mathematics is the language of the gods. But it's a real quote, but it comes from Galileo, and he said mathematics is the language with which God has written the universe, right? And that could be any type of God that you want to worship. It doesn't necessarily have to be, whatever. It's whatever you want to believe. But this is what Galileo said at his time. And when you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin is math, right? Bitcoin is math at its true and fundamental level. So since the creation, Bitcoin has precisely a maximum supply of 21 million coins. Now, as of this writing, we're approximately 18 million coins exist now, and new Bitcoins are being supplied at a rate of 6.25 per block, right? Or I should say 3.6% annually. So every 10 minutes, or nearly every 10 minutes, just new 6.25 new Bitcoins are being minted, right? So in order for us to get value for that CryptoKitty, it's going to require ETH. But let's say Cardano takes off, then all of a sudden it's going to require ADA, right? Or let's say Tezos makes a break out of nowhere and starts doing smart contracts and has their own CryptoKitties on there. Then all of a sudden it's going to require some Tez on there, right? And so you're understanding that as far as smart contracting platforms, there's going to be multiple of them. And yes, Bitcoin and Ethereum might take the lead for both of them. Just like you have Dash and you have Litecoin and you have Zcash, and they're all hard forms of cryptocurrencies. Not all of them are sound and truly organic in nature and frictionless and divisible and truly decentralized as a Bitcoin, right? And they're all not global and native to the internet. I mean, they are global and they are native, but they're not the first, right? And so when you think about these things and you realize the importance of Bitcoin, you start understanding that, yes, will other currencies succeed besides Bitcoin? I think so. I think Zcash will succeed. I think Litecoin will succeed. I think Bitcoin Cash even might succeed. Dash. There's going to be all sorts of cryptocurrencies. Will they have the value of Bitcoin? Obviously, no. They won't. If you've heard this interview with Jack Dorsey, he just waxed poetic about Bitcoin. It literally changed the world, right? And it's moving the world forward. And that's something that I think few people understand, right? Or few people notice that Bitcoin changed the world and it happened before our eyes, right? And everything that comes after Bitcoin is secondary to that. So take a listen to Jack as he talks about this. And he really solidifies, at least to me, the importance of Bitcoin and why it being native to the internet gives all other things value.
I believe that the currency we use is a huge part of the answer. And I believe that the internet deserves and requires a native currency. And that's why I'm such a huge believer in Bitcoin. Because it just our biggest problem as a company right now is we cannot act like an internet company. Open a new market, we have to have a partnership with a local bank. We have to pay attention to different regulatory onboarding environments. And a digital currency like Bitcoin takes a bunch of that away, where we can potentially launch a product in every single market around the world, because they're all using the same currency. And we have consistent understanding of regulation and onboarding and what that means. So I think the internet continuing to be accessible to people is number one, and then I think currency is number two. and it will just allow for a lot more innovation, a lot more speed in terms of what we can build and others can build, and it's just really exciting. So I mean, I want to be able to see that and feel that in my lifetime.
So in this aspect and in other aspects, you have a deep interest in cryptocurrency and distributed ledger tech in general. I talked to Vitalik Buterin yesterday on this podcast. He says hi, by the way.
Hey.
He's a brilliant person. Talked a lot about Bitcoin and Ethereum, of course. So can you maybe linger on this point? What do you find appealing about Bitcoin, about digital currency? Where do you see it going in the next 10, 20 years? And what are some of the challenges with respect to Square, but also just bigger for our globally, for our world, for the way we think about money?
I think the most beautiful thing about it is there's no one person setting the direction. And there's no one person on the other side that can stop it. So we have something that is pretty organic in nature and very principled in its original design. I think the Bitcoin white paper is one of the most seminal works of computer science in the last 20, 30 years. It's poetry. I mean,
it's
really
pretty cool technology. I mean, that's not often talked about. Sort of, there's so much sort of hype around digital currency, about sort of the financial impacts of it, but the actual technology is quite beautiful from a computer science perspective.
Yeah, and the underlying principles behind it that went into it, even to the point of releasing it under a pseudonym. I think that's a very, very powerful statement. The timing of when it was released is powerful. It was a total activist move. I mean, it's moving the world forward in a way that I think is extremely noble and honorable and enables everyone to be part of the story, which is also really cool. So you asked a question around 10 years and 20 years. I mean, I think the amazing thing is no one knows. And it can emerge, and every person that comes into the ecosystem, whether they be a developer or someone who uses it, can change its direction in small and large ways. And that's what I think it should be, because that's what the internet has shown is possible. Now there's complications with that, of course, and there's certainly companies that own large parts of the internet and can direct it more than others, and there's not equal access to every single person in the world just yet, but all those problems are visible enough to speak about them, and to me that gives confidence that they're solvable in a relatively short time frame. I think the world changes a lot as we get these satellites projecting the internet down to Earth, because it just removes a bunch of the former constraints and really levels the playing field. But a global currency, which a native currency for the internet is a proxy for, is a very powerful concept. And I don't think any one person on this planet truly understands the ramifications of that. I think there's a lot of positives to it. There's some negatives as well.
So as we move into this here in very near future, where we start having to value digital forms of all sorts, it's going to require something like Bitcoin, something truly organic, right? Frictionless, divisible, truly decentralized, not like a quarter decentralized, but like fully decentralized as a currency. And it's global and it's native to the internet. I mean, that's the importance of Bitcoin, right? It's painfully obvious how Bitcoin becomes the world reserve currency for digital assets. It gives other digital assets value. So this is why I think both Ethereum and Bitcoin can coexist like this, right? One helps the other. And Bitcoin is just that foundational layer for everything else native on the internet. And that's a good thing for Ethereum, and that's a good thing for Cardano, and that's a good thing for all smart contracting platforms. And honestly, it gives credence to other hard cryptocurrencies like Dash, Litecoin, Monero, Zcash, take your pick. Okay, that's all I got. So a little backstory on this episode. This episode really came from having those conversations on crypto Twitter and trying to get people to understand how important Bitcoin really is and how it could benefit the whole ecosystem if it's just a foundational layer. Because if it's not the foundational layer, everything just kind of falls right through, and then we're back at fiat currencies again. This is how you truly change the world, is by utilizing something that's frictionless, something that's global, something that's native to the internet, something that is important as much as Bitcoin is important. I don't think that's an understatement. If you look at the cover art for today's episode, you will see the Mona Lisa and a Bitcoin logo right beside it. But the vast majority of that photo, that painting, is kind of graffitied out. It's a Basquiat ripoff, I guess. I think in the future people will, come in trainloads disrespecting Bitcoin because they truly hate that it started this kind of thing forward. And that itself it's a curse in a way, but it's going to change the world.